everyone, welcome to Higher Math Solutions. This video tutorial is going to go over factoring the greatest common factor, otherwise known as GCF. Just a quick review to go over how to find factors. Let's just start with a simple number of 10. You can use division or multiplication to come up with these factors, but I'll make a list for you. Factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. Most people do not have trouble coming up with factors of numbers, but let's go to a letter example. Let's look at x to the 4th power. To find the greatest common factor of x to the 4th, to make a list of them, you just write out x 4 times. And the reason I wrote out x 4 times is because that is what the exponent is on the variable. What we're going to do now is we're going to put these together to factor out the greatest common factor. So I'm going to give you 3 terms. 5x to the 4th plus 15x to the 3rd minus 10. And let's figure out the greatest common factor between these 3 terms. I'm going to just look at 5, 15, and 10 first. If you have trouble figuring out the greatest common factor, you can always make a list. So the factors of 5 are just 1 and 5. The factors of 15 are 1, 3, 5, and 15. The factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. And to pick the greatest common factor, I'm going to pick the largest number that all of them have in common. All of them have 5, and it's the largest number that they all 3 share. So 5 is the greatest common factor between 5, 15, and 10. Next, let's look at the letters. I have x to the 4th, I have x to the 3rd, and then I do not have an x in the last term. We can actually call that x to the 0. Since I do not have an x in the last term, there is not a greatest common factor in the variables. So my greatest common factor for all 3 terms is just 5. Now I'm going to factor out that number. What you do is you place the greatest common factor in the front, and then you open a parentheses. I'm going to list what is left over, and to get what is left over is that you divide. Many people make the mistake of subtracting, but make sure that you are actually dividing. So for the first term, I'm going to do 5 divided by 5, which is 1. And I did not divide any letters out in the greatest common factor, so my variables stay the same. So I just rewrite x to the 4th. And my first term is done. So I'm going to write the plus sign, and I will do the same thing to the second term. I'm going to divide. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. And again, my letters will not change because I did not take any letters out to the front. I am now going to write a minus sign, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I will divide. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And once I have finished dividing out all 3 of my terms, I will close the parentheses, and now I am finished. I want to do one more example. So let's come up with the example 2x to the 6th plus 8x to the 4th plus 10x to the 2nd. I again give you 3 terms, and I want you to start with the numbers first. So if we look at 2, 8, and 10, come up with its highest common factor. If you need to make a list again, that would be fine. So the factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. The factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. The number that they all have in common, and it's the highest, is 2. So 2 is the greatest common factor between 2, 8, and 10. Next, I'm going to go to the variables. I have x to the 6th, x to the 4th, and x squared. To write out its factors, I can write x 6 times. For this one, write x 4 times, and this one, write x 2 times. But a good rule of thumb is to know, since every term has an x to a power, its greatest common factor will be the lowest power. So in this case, the greatest common factor is x to the 2nd because the 2 is lower than the 6 and the 4. So its greatest common factor is x squared. So I'm going to take both of them out and then factor. So I'm going to write the greatest common factor in the front. The greatest common factor between 2, 8, and 10 was 2. And the greatest common factor between my variables was the one to the lowest power. So that was x to the 2nd. And then you open your parentheses and you're going to get your remaining terms. So remember, to get the remaining terms, you're now going to divide. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. We actually are dividing our letters in this example. X to the 6th divided by x squared is going to end up with x to the 4th. And to get the 4, you subtract your exponents whenever you divide. So 6 minus 2 is 4. That term is finished. So now I'm going to have a plus sign, and I'm going to do it again. 8 divided by 2 is 4. X to the 4th divided by x squared. You subtract the 4 and the 2 to get x to the 2nd power. Then you put a plus sign and you do the last term. 10 divided by 2 is 5. X squared divided by x squared, 2 minus 2 ends up being 0. So your x's are all gone. And you close your parentheses and you have finished factoring out the greatest common factor. Thank you for watching Higher Math Solutions. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe. I will be posting videos weekly.